Typically, my videos focus on preserving food, eating healthy, raising your food, gardening, farm stands, all of those things wrapped up in one. And today we are definitely going to be talking about vacuum sealing, but it's going to have a little twist today. Did I pique your interest? This is Deb from Just Do Something Homestead, and today we are going to be vacuum sealing candy. And as you may have noticed, the process is just a teeny bit different. So stick around as we learn how to vacuum seal all those candies you got for half off. There are 3 different ways to vacuum seal your candy in canning jars. And today we're going to go over all 3 of those ways. So let's get started. The very first thing you're going to need is a vacuum sealer. This is my old model. It's between, I keep saying, 11, 12 years, somewhere in that range. This is the Food Saver FM5200, and it is my standby. I have never had a false seal with it. It has lived through hard labor. Honestly, I use this thing several times a day. It does not matter what kind of vacuum sealer you have. You may be using a big electric one like this, or a mason jar sealer, or a rechargeable handheld. All of them are going to seal your food. Next, you're going to need a variety of canning jars. You're going to want them washed in hot soapy water and dried completely. Don't forget lids or flats and rings. Now, if you were one of those that bought your jars from the thrift store, like most of mine came from the thrift store, you can buy those rings and lids in boxes. And lastly, this is the tool I'm pulling out today. This is what I use to crochet with. It pokes holes into my towels so I can crochet on top of them. But honestly, all you need is something with a real sharp point. In the past, I simply used a paper punch and it worked fine. It just made my hand really sore. And today, I have a lot of candy to punch. And as I said, there are 3 different ways to preserve your candy by vacuum sealing it. And it all depends on how your candy was packaged. Typically, it was packaged in one of 3 ways. The first way is that each piece was individually put in a wrapper. Next is they're wrapped in foil, just like that. And the last one is they're individual pieces. They are not separated. They are all in a bag. So let's start with the easiest, and that is the product you can just pour into a jar. Jelly beans are super easy to vacuum seal. All you need to do is pour it into the jar. One 14-ounce bag of jelly beans fits almost perfectly in a pint-sized jar. Now, this might look a little different. This is actually a wide mouth. I simply grabbed what I had. Now, to vacuum seal, you want to make sure there's no crumbs on the top of that jar. So wipe it off with your clean hand, and then you're going to put a lid or a flat on top of that. One way to know that this lid has not been sealed is if you push on it, you're going to hear it thump, just like that. Now, it's held down now, but see it flop right back. So if your jar lid is flexible, it has not been sealed. Once it's sealed, this is down and it stays down. This is a Food Saver jar sealer, and it's an attachment that I had to order separately. Unfortunately, it did not come with my sealer. Now, my newest vacuum sealer, they did include it, so you may have them already. If not, this is a separate purchase. It's about $14 on Amazon. Once your lid is on the jar, take the attachment and push it down on top of it, just like that. Next, you're going to attach the port. Now, let's look at my Food Saver here. This port is usually in the top right of your machine. So if yours does not have this, then it's not going to be able to seal jars. It can only do bags. So I highly recommend when you buy one, make sure you have a port system included. The next step is to plug that port in the top of your jar sealer attachment. When you're looking at the top of your Food Saver, you're going to see a lot of different buttons. The first one you do is turn on the power. Now, it is showing that it's set for dry foods, which is what I'm doing. I can change that to moist foods, and I have vacuum sealed fruits and berries that I put in my refrigerator. But today we're going to use dry foods, and I am going to push accessory instead of marinate. And my machine will shut off automatically. All right, and I just heard it clink, that sound we were talking about, and you're going to remove the port. Once the port's off, you're going to take off the sealer. To ensure that this jar has been vacuum sealed, you're going to look for the center and see if there's a little indent there, which there is. And then I'm going to try to remove that lid with my fingers, and I am not able to, so I know this jar has been vacuum sealed. Now, unlike vacuum sealing in bags, it removes the air and the bag sucks real close to it and your product doesn't move. The air has been removed even though these jelly beans are able to move around in the jar. The next thing I do is look for the best by date, and on here it says October 2024. I am automatically going to add 1 year to that, so it's going to be October 2025. And just like your other vacuum sealed items, you are going to put a ring on it and then store it in a cool, dry location. I've actually had jelly beans out in my pantry for 2 years and there has been no decrease in the quality. So even though I put that they are good until 2025, I bet they're going to go much further than that. All right, that was the easiest thing that you can vacuum seal as far as candy. We're going to move up a notch now. The bag of candy has candy wrapped in 2 different ways. We have the candy kisses that are wrapped in foil, and we also have individual pieces of candy. Let's start with a candy that is individually wrapped. When I first started vacuum sealing my candies like this, I simply put them all in a jar and vacuum sealed it. Thankfully, a viewer was the person to tell me that, you know, Deb, you didn't do anything because the air is still surrounding your chocolates. Well, that made sense to me, so I started researching it, and you, in fact, have to poke a hole in each one of these packages. I used to use a paper punch, but honestly, it's too big to get into those packages. And after using one of those all day, it really made my hand hurt. So that's when I switched to something far, far better. This is called an owl, A-W-L. And I bought those last year for crocheting, and it was $9 for 4 of them on Amazon. But it has a very sharp point. And then, of course, I have this board underneath so that it can go into the wood a little bit if needed. So I don't want to do this on my countertop, but it has made the job so much easier. So basically, you're going to poke it into the package, not into the candy, and just go in there and make a hole, just like that. And I know it went through because if I squeeze this now, there's no air in that package, and that's what you want. When I run my vacuum sealer, it's going to be able to suck all the air out of that packaging. Now, I'm looking at 3 different kinds of candies. I do divide them because I don't necessarily want my Rolos to taste like peanut butter. This is especially true if you're using peppermint patties. So what I found is to use a smaller jar and keep the individual candies separated. I'm going to move along pretty quick, and I am going to poke a hole in each package, separate them, and divide them into quart jars. Now, I know what you're thinking. I spent a lot of time teaching people how to eat healthy, and this bioengineered candy is far from healthy. But we are human, and because of that, we like to have a sweet treat. I have bought organic candy. In fact, I bought a lot of it, but it's expensive. And what I was finding, I would go to work, and I came home one day to get a piece of chocolate, and it was all gone. Jim has been helping himself during the day, and I was like, we can't keep spending that much money. So we are not going to sit down and eat a mason jar of chocolate. In fact, we're probably only going to have 1 or 2 pieces a week. This is going to last us at least a year. And my grandparents loved chocolate. They ate good old Hershey's, and the reality is Grandma was almost 101 when she passed away. She ate candy every single day and ice cream. You only live once. The goal of vacuum sealing is to remove the air, and each one of these packages has the air trapped inside. So vacuum sealing is going to get that to last much, much longer. First, you got to get the air out. Okay, they are ready to seal. I have Reese's peanut butter cups, Kit Kats, which I only had a few, so smaller jar, and Rolos, which I had never seen them packaged like this. This is perfect. Let's get them sealed. I just run my fingers across that rim and put on the lid. Since I'm using a standard size lid, I'm going to put my largemouth one away and use the regular one instead. You follow the same steps, put it on top of your jar and plug in the port. Then turn on your machine and hit accessory. And it shuts off automatically after all the air is removed. And this reminds me of an important question. First off, is all the air out of this jar? I would say not. You're never going to get every little bit of it out. So a lot of subscribers ask me, should you add oxygen absorbers? My response is it's a personal choice. So if you want to, there's no problem. It's not going to hurt anything. It's going to ensure that all the air was removed. For me, I'm going to start using it for long-term storage, things like rice and beans. But for short-term like this, nope, I'm not going to spend the money on it. You're going to disconnect this port and then remove the jar sealer. Check this lid just like you did with the wide mouth, and it is sunk in the middle and it is not coming off when I pull on it. And before I talk about how long you can store this, let me seal those other two jars. Typically, I start by looking at the package at the Best By date. Then I add 1 year to that date, and I am pretty certain that I can go much further than that. But chocolate is tricky, and peanut butter in chocolate is even more difficult. If you have ever eaten an old Reese's peanut butter cup, you know that the peanut butter in the center can dry out and get rancid. And that is precisely why you don't vacuum seal nuts. Nuts and peanuts become rancid with time. So the only way to know for sure is to read the ingredients. The bag says the Best By date is October 2024. That is not very long. Do you remember as a kid when your candy lasted far longer than a few months? But since these have peanut butter in them, I am going to go by the Best By date and put October 2024. And for these two, I'm going to make it October 2025. And again, store these in a dark, cool location. All right, we looked at putting candy directly in jars. We looked at poking holes in them so that their air is removed. Let's look at the third way to vacuum seal. The last way is when your candy is wrapped in foil. There are two ways to approach this. First off, you could say, well, there is no way there is any air around my chocolate. Look how tight the package is. And if that's the case, you can just fill your jar and vacuum seal. The only trick is don't expect it to go much beyond the Best By date. The other way is to take them all out of the packaging. And honestly, that package really wasn't on there very tight. So you can take them all out and put them in a jar. Now, obviously, not only is that time consuming, but you got to make sure you store it in a cool location. And I wouldn't mix in different types of chocolate. This is what I ultimately decided to do. I am going to vacuum seal my Kisses still in the wrappers. I took the dark chocolate Hershey out of the wrapper. It only filled a small container. And then the rest of them, I'm going to put on my table for light munching when company comes. All this candy. It looks like a candy shop in here. Everything I sealed was using one of those three methods. And whatever didn't fit in my jars is going to go on the table. Don't forget to order your owl, AWL. You can use this for anything that's packaged from granola bars to packages of fruit snacks. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. Have a blessed day, everybody. Bye-bye.